Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of the 40k Badcast. My name is Dan Boyd, and I'm joined, as always, with my impish, childish empress of a partner, childlike empress of a partner, Campbell McLaughlin. Campbell, how is the never-ending story? Is that where the childlike empress is from?
Yes. I've actually never seen that. I'm just basing this on my cargo culted knowledge of that movie. That's just kind of been ingrained in me by nature of growing up near nerds.
You know,
I don't know.
I feel like I should start writing down my intros or something instead of just coming up with them.
Yeah, but then you lose out in a few of the, you lose out in the certain magic, the certain je ne sais quoi that is the awkward first few minutes of our Badcast before we actually get into the groove of it for the session.
It's my favorite part of the show.
It's basically a warm-up exercise that you all get to listen to.
Right. So we're coming at you. It's June 8th here recording. Forgive me if I'm a little slow in the brain today, man, because the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup last night. And as many of you listeners know, I'm from the D.C. area, and so that got me pretty excited. Now, I didn't go out and party like crazy, but I was still up pretty late last night. So forgive me if I make any slip-ups or malfunctions of my brain.
Well, I was up late celebrating DC in my own special way, replaying Fallout 3 for some reason.
Hey-oh. They have a town there called Andale, which is based off my hometown of Annandale, and it's full of cannibals.
Cool. My old neighborhood of
Fallout,
Summerville.
it's actually whoa.
Oh. Well, that's the thing. In Fallout 4, Revere Beach is basically one-to-one. It looks almost exactly the same, although there's more hypodermics on the actual beach.
Isn't that Fallout 4 is in Boston, right?
Yeah, it's back in Boston, kid.
All right, well, everybody, welcome to our Warhammer 40,000 podcast, where we try to have fun with our stupid fucking hobby. And let's get right into it, man. Let's get into the aspects here and talk about what's on our hobby radar. I am just about done with a group of 5 intercessors, which would be my 4th squad of intercessors, as I'm working towards having ultimately 6 squads of intercessors.
Nice.
That is a lot of sibilant sounds coming out of my mouth, and I'm glad I have a pop filter.
Sibilant sounds for Space Marines of the Adeptus Astartes.
So I actually haven't been able to get a ton of work done lately due to various scheduling issues and stuff. And then I'm going on vacation next week. So my hobby progress, I'm going to Ireland.
Dope.
Yeah, we're Danielle and I are gonna get in a car and drive around that smallish country and look at all the sights. And we're I don't want to speak for her, but I'm very excited.
Sounds swell.
Yeah. So I've really only worked on those intercessors and nothing else so far. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I went on my vacation just this past week. I was in beautiful and sunny San Diego, where I got what passes for a tan for someone of my particularly Irish descent.
That is code for burned.
Sunburned, then it peels off, and then it's like half a shade darker. But I had a lovely time out there. I proposed to my girlfriend, and she accepted my offer for whatever reason.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
If she had denied you,
yeah,
would you talk about it on the show? Would you have mentioned that?
Ooh, I think failure is one of the most compelling themes in all media, so maybe, except, my God, I would just get deservedly dunked on by literally everyone, so I think I'd probably pass on it because of the public-facing persona here.
Yeah, that's... Because I know you, after it happened to you in our group chat, you showed the picture of her wearing the ring. Very beautiful ring, by the way. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, he wouldn't have told us if she said no. We would never know. Well, maybe like when we get together later this year for Nova, you might bring it up. But I don't think you just plop that down into the group chat and be like, hey, everybody, my girlfriend and I are probably going to break up because she doesn't want to marry me.
Cool thing, I bought a house with her. But fortunately, it was a much more comfortable plane ride home. During which I basically caught up on a week worth of Warhammer forum posts and news and shit like that.
Yeah, you really hedged your bets there, didn't you? You bought a house with her first and then asked her to marry you.
Well, you got to put the horse before the fight.
Oh, that's good. So you didn't do too much hobbying, did you?
No. Well, it's been a bit since we actually recorded, so I have done a bit. I've been like painting or priming and putting together Black Templar stuff, and it just hasn't been getting me. It hasn't been exciting me very much, just probably because I'm kind of tired of painting black power armor for a year and a half. I paid like 5,000 points in this time. And I got kind of drunk before seeing Deadpool 2, and I bought Forgebane because it was cool, and it was at the comic book store, and I was already in there for a pot of Rhinox hide paint. So
yeah, you might as well drop $120 on a box set.
Yeah, minor impulse purchase. So I started building the first. I built the first armature. The kit went together beautifully. I'm going with my old House Lacar scheme, which, if you'll recall, is a lot of yellow. So I had to prime all the parts separately, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's starting to come together.
How are you painting your yellow?
It is currently over white, about 5 coats of Imperial yellow. I did a recess wash of Fuegan orange, and I have Dorn yellow for a highlight because I have, what's this guy right here? Flash Jits yellow, which is Flash Gets yellow. I'm sorry.
It's a callback to fucking episode 1.
We're all about the Badcast deep cuts today. But I've tried highlighting that over the yellow, and it doesn't really show up that well. It might on the long, thick lines I'll do in some panels, but I think I might just go straight to the Dorn yellow because no one's really going to notice. I
feel like, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but I feel like you're doing it wrong. I think you're missing a step. When I did my orcs in yellow, basically the same shades of yellow you're using, but there's an intermediate step from primer to color, and it was Averland Sunset. Yeah. And 1 coat of Averland Sunset, because Averland Sunset is one of the base coats, and it's actually a very good base coat. Like it's not, you don't need a ton of layers of it, like thin coats. You like 2 will do you, and then you pop your yellow over that, like 1 or 2 coats of that over it, and you're done. No, you're not done, but there's the base of your yellow, and then I use for the orcs and for my Hulkamaniacs, I used Seraphim Sepia to shade that, and it looked really good, and it wasn't too hard. Yeah, I know that you've complained. I've heard you complain about yellow a whole lot in the past. And maybe with the second armature, you give a shot. Throw an intermediate step in there.
I mean, the real step I'm missing in painting my yellow is committing seppuku halfway through.
And I should say, I was priming black on all of those too.
Yeah, this is over white. But parts of this night, because I primed the skeleton separately from the armor plates, parts of that are black. So I'll try that method anyway, because I've got to go over black. So I'll get the Averland Sunset in there and work that up. But it's starting to come together. Like once, the frame and the base are all pretty much all done, it's coming together. I'm hoping this might bring me out of my little painting Black Templar funk.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but while I was down in San Diego, I did get to go to a place called Addie's Games, which is a game store. It was like a big game store, and I saw walls of product, and a bunch of tables of people playing Magic and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I'm just curious, where's the gaming area? And they went, oh, you have to go through these doors past the bar, because it's a game store that has a brewery in it. It's a tap room for Barrel Harbor Brewery. So I got to walk by there to go over to their game tables, which were beautiful game tables. They had some pretty good terrain. They had some nice armies in the cabinets. And I'm like, man, they're also open to like midnight. So if I had the opportunity, I'd probably just maybe live in that game store. The smell might be a bit much. But while I was there, again, kind of drunk, you'll notice a theme with my purchasing habits. I went over to their used model section. They had this big, display case, and it's like, yeah, it's like $2 a model. So I picked up like a Devastator squad, a Terminator captain, like the new plastic one, a couple of Vanguard veterans that I later realized are really, really bad Finecast miscasts. So I guess they'll be casualties or something. Nice. But still got a bunch of cool stuff, which was. Yeah, it's always fun to go to game stores in places you don't actually live and see what the scene there is like, and it seemed like a more casual, comfortable scene to me.
Yeah. I'm actually excited for that because I'm traveling for work in October, and I think I'll talk about it when it gets closer, but I think I'm gonna try to get a game of 40k in or 2 while I'm out there in Denver. So
nice.
So listeners, Denver listeners, I know there's a possibility of being one of you. Just keep that in mind for October. Okay, so you bought Knights, and Games Workshop is providing us with a lot of new Knights.
Yeah.
As we move into the new stuff section of the Auspecs.
This section is in my show notes as in all caps, Knights are cool and good.
They certainly are good. We'll get to the rules that we've seen in a moment, but they released a couple of new models. To go with the Armigers, there's the Armiger Helverins. Is that how you say that? Helverins?
Helveticas.
Wolverines.
Helveticas.
Helvetica Wolverines. They have autocannons on them, and they, I think, work like Predator autocannons. I'm going to tell you, man, I'm not a huge fan of the two spindly cannon arm looks.
It reminds me a little bit of, I think, the actual Warhammer mech from BattleTech.
Yeah, I think they were meant to look like lances.
Yeah, they totally are. They've got the cone on them, too, like a jousting lance.
And my favorite thing about going to medieval times is seeing all those dudes with two lances riding around on horses.
Yeah, just gotta double fist those lances like Duke Nukem, medieval Duke Nukem.
You're like, oh yeah, you got a shield? Well, I got another fucking lance.
I guess you wouldn't be medieval Duke Nukem, you'd be the Duke of Nukem.
Duke of Nukem. So, Forge World has a knight with a lance.
They do.
I don't even try to remember what the Forge World knight names are. So I'm not gonna even, give that a shot. But it's got a lance, it's got a shield, and it looks great.
Yeah,
it's a really good-looking model.
I think it's the Knight Apostrophe.
And the Knight Apostrophe. I was thinking Castigator, but I don't fucking know. These guys, I don't know, man. Like, I like the Armiger with the chainsaw and the multi-melta or thermal spear or whatever it's called. I think it's a cool look.
Yeah, it is a cool look.
But I really think they dropped the ball on this one, just giving it the two lance arms. Lance Armstrongs.
Well, much like Lance Armstrong, it's dope.
Yeah, I think that it's actually going to be a pretty good model, though.
I wish I had a better doping joke there, because yeah. Anyway.
I didn't even get it.
Yeah.
Either I'm dumb or that joke was not good. Listeners, you decide.
Get at me.
Engagement.
Engage with social media. Engage with your favorite hashtag brands.
But they did come out with a model that I do like. And that's the Dominus class knight.
Yeah, the War Lad.
The War Lad. And you can make two of them. One of them has got a plasma gun that's not good, and then has a sort of scaled down shadow sword gun, a volcano cannon, which, I mean, yeah, it can shoot a lot of shots, whatever. Who cares? The other one has a fucking triple flamer and a huge harpoon gun that does fucking 10 damage if it wounds.
And it's strength 16?
And it will fucking wound because it's strength 16.
Yeah, no, there's...
Minus 6 AP.
There are technically two knights, but there's only one knight, and it's the one with the giant harpoon gun.
Well, he's got this triple flamer, the huge triple flamer also, which is, it's 3d6 shots. You can't charge it. You can't charge the knight, except with, Mortarion or something.
Or Blood Angels with the whatever things.
The thing that makes you not able to do...
Overwatch.
Yeah, Overwatch at it. Raven Guard have a thing that can do that too.
I think Night Lords do too. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, the thing looks great. Like, it's not as much bigger than a regular knight as I was kind of expecting it to be. Like, it's kind of like half a head taller, but it's bulkier. It's
way bulkier, and its legs look a lot different too. The armor on the legs comes up a lot higher.
Yeah,
they're wearing thigh highs instead of knee highs. I love them, man. I think they look good. I like the little melta-gun turrets. I like the missiles or battle cannons on top. I think it's a great looking model, and it's a cool addition to what I already thought were good looking models in Knights.
Yeah,
and I know we're going to see them at Nova.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of them at Nova based on what the rules are.
So let's talk about the rules for a moment.
Okay.
I think the rules are pretty cool for the most part.
I'm not super abreast on them, but at least read a bit of them.
Well, there's one. I think it's a warlord trait where the your warlord, if he's a knight, he can, and I think it's a house specific one too. He ignores all wound rolls of 1, 2, or 3. So anything strength 9 and above, because he's toughness 8, anything strength 9 and above still only wounds on 4s.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Which is good. That's a cool rule to make your warlord more survivable. What's not cool, however, is they can have a 3+ invulnerable save.
Yeah, because they're balanced over having a 3-up, 5-up, at least the existing knights we have. If it was like a 3-up, 4-up for the bigger guys, all right, I'd get that. But 3-up invuln saves, awful lot of them. You're really going to want mortal wounds to deal with these things.
3-up invulnerable saves suck in every iteration.
I've
said
them
this
on my
before
Thunder
on the
Storm
fucking
Shield
show, man.
Tornadoes.
I don't like having 3-up invulnerable saves at all. in Warhammer 40,000. I think the designer should have capped them at fucking 4-ups.
I think they should generally be capped on 4-ups. I have an exception for like Storm Shield Terminators. I like them having them because they're kind of useless otherwise. But I get it. On big, hard to kill things like this, it ain't so fun.
No, I'm truly not a fan. It's Knights are cool, and we're gonna see them, but Knights with 3-up invulnerable saves suck. It's not fun. We talked a lot about in 7th edition your invulnerable units running around.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
It's back to that.
It's just not that fun.
Because even the silly fucking 3-up invulnerable save Land Raider I can make right now, because I have that Land Raider Excelsior or whatever, it's only 3-up invulnerable for 1 turn. And that's basically just so you can... I would just only use this to survive the first turn Alpha Strike. That would probably get directed at that guy anyway. Yeah,
well, listeners, if we're wrong about this, if there's something we got wrong about the rules for Knights, just let us know. I'm probably not going to buy the Knight Codex because I'm not super interested in Knights. And we're often wrong about stuff on the show, so just let us know if we're off on this one. Additionally, Orcs and Space Wolves, their codices got announced the other day, which is cool, great. Orcs are one of the most flavorful and interesting races in 40k, and they seem to be the only group that's actually having fun in Warhammer 40,000. And Space Wolves are a bunch of shithead Viking truck bro assholes who suck and should be... Honestly, I would love it if the Thousand Suns just eradicated them and their stupid planet and their dumb Primarch from existence.
In the never-ending beef between Tool and Monomarth.
I guess that's a good one, man. That's a fucking good one.
I'm happy they're at least coming out with the codexes for these guys. I know, people who like Space Wolves really fucking like Space Wolves, like I did during like 3rd edition. Because I used to like them back then. Once they went like full on wolf, it got a bit too much for me, but that's all right.
I'm gonna virtue signal a little bit here, but I've never liked Space Wolves. I always thought that when I saw them the first time in like the 2nd edition rulebook, and they had their dumb fucking baby blue armor. I was just like, fuck these guys. These guys suck. Give me them orcs. That's
well, speaking of orcs, I was expecting them to be kind of like the last codex because they're such a major player in the game, and they're such a major player in the setting, and they need a bunch of new models. And there's rumors out there that they're going to be getting a bunch of the vehicles redone, which would be pretty sweet because war tracks are kind of old. They're older than most people who play this game at this point.
Yeah, I think that only leaves Genestealer cults after Orcs and Space Wolves are done.
And like Sisters of Battle and Demon Hunters and a bunch of the random like little factions that haven't really been fleshed out.
Have a codex.
Yeah, but Inquisition guys.
Okay, well they're not a real full faction.
No,
and honestly, they don't have. I don't really think they have a place in 40k, to be quite honest, because they're behind the scenes. They're cops. They're the fucking FBI of the Imperium. Like, we don't have FBI guys. Well, I mean, we probably do have some of them, but would like to do this and dress up like army men and storm fucking shit and like whatever. But they're not on the front lines of shit. I mean,
it would clearly just be an improvement if our Federal Bureau of Investigations all had broadswords. And space chimps.
Okay, yeah, broadswords and space chimps with knuckle meltas.
My favorite. Well, I will be buying the Knight Codex when it comes out because there was recently a coupon on eBay for 20% off whatever. And for like $160, I got the big boy new Knight and a pack of Helverins. So I've got a Knight army now, I guess.
Now you're a Knight player. I did buy a bunch of Primaris shit.
I am the Knight man.
On 20% off day on eBay and saved a bunch of money doing it. So that was cool. So in other non-40k news from Games Workshop, they came out with their AOS podcasts, the Stormcast.
Yeah, the quality is pretty solid.
Yeah, it looks good. It sounds good. They're clearly doing a very good job with their engineer and their post-production stuff. Looks great. They're still working the kinks out on how to sound like they're having a conversation.
It feels kind of scripted,
which is okay. It's good that they're working off notes.
But that's what we do.
Yeah, right. They're not just fucking winging it. But it's still kind of like they're just sticking to talking points for the most part.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's cool that they have a vehicle to like talk to designers and talk to rules writers and model designers and everything about the new stuff that's coming out, because AOS has a ton of new stuff that's coming out this year.
Yeah, that new edition, like just touching on it real quick, those ghosts are cool.
The Night Haunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the Rattle Boys.
I like those guys too. I'm not starting AOS, Campbell. I'm not. But if I did,
well, I already play, but you know what I mean.
But if I did,
that'd be how you do it.
I would buy Ghosts.
Yeah,
I would just check it out. Look at all my ghosts, and it would be cool.
Yeah, I liked watching it when I saw it, but it does feel kind of a waste when you have people like Phil Kelly or Jervis Johnson or whoever, who I could honestly listen to talk for hours. I would love to just pick the brains of those people and hear them go into their influences, their history, all the things they're doing, all the reasoning they have behind these things, which I guess you get a bit more of in their Twitch channel. But with these, they're just in and out in a couple minutes, and it feels kind of too brief to really get a great conversation going. But I understand that their whole point is that these are kind of digestible 3 times a week, which is insane, little podcasts. Also, the way it's edited is it felt kind of almost aggressive to me, because it was a lot of turning towards the camera and saying something like the beginning of the Colbert Report, and then turning back and having big graphics fly at the screen and stuff. Kind of like it kind of either like the beginning of the Colbert Report or like a sports cast.
Well, I think they're having fun with it. I was looking at some of the lower thirds they're putting up for maybe not the last one, but the one before. They had Ben Johnson on. And then they had a different Ben, whose last name I forget, but his lower third said a different Ben, which I thought was fun.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I like it. I like where it's going.
No, I think you're right. They
it.
do have a very. There's a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. You know, if you can convince Jervis or Phil, who I'm sure are extremely busy, to come on the show and talk about stuff, or oh my god, like John Blanche.
Jesus, if only.
If they could get, oh man, like they could post like a 4-hour fucking show of whoever, literally anybody, interviewing John Blanche about what he thinks about Warhammer, and just like listen to that dude talk. Oh my god, I'd watch it.
I feel like if you turn a camera,
watch it on repeat.
I feel like if you turned a camera on John Blanche, he would just vanish in a puff of green smoke, and you just hear like some prog rock chords over as he disappeared.
Campbell, did you play any games?
I actually did. My first game. It's like my first.
So did I.
Whoa! I played like my first finished game in 3 months or so.
Fantastic.
Dylan came down with his family, and they were hanging out with Anne and her friend and all that. And Dylan and I got to play a game. He brought his orcs and a bunch of terrain, and we rolled out one of my game boards. I rolled out my like old Warhammer Fantasy sort of table, which is just rolling green hills with a pile of skulls. It's that plastic Realm of Battle board.
Yeah.
And it was so dense with all the terrain he brought, and I brought my Templars out. And Anne's friend walks over and is like, hey, my husband used to play this game in college, and I've never seen a table this dense. It was always a board with a couple of books and soda and like crushed beer cans on it for terrain. I didn't know they actually made all this stuff. So that was kind of fun. But the game itself was unfortunately a bit one-sided. It was definitely the old index versus codex sort of matchup.
Yeah.
We drew cards for a open war deck thing, and it was just more or less kill each other with certain battlefield roles having greater value.
Yeah.
And I kind of just rolled him because I was able to, we both were in pretty good cover, but he'd get some shooting off, and I would roll back the wounded units and roll forward new units, and just my dice were hotter than his. And really the only highlight that happened was Dietrich Donnerschlag, the Schlongdonger as he was, charges...
Dongschlonger, okay.
Oh, Dongschlonger, okay. Well, Schlongdonger is his other title. He charged through a wall of flames of Overwatch from a bunch of Mega Armor knobs just to fight the war boss, and he causes 4 wounds. The war boss saves all and hits back, dealing 2 wounds. And then next round, Dietrich just fucking eviscerates the dude with 8 wounds.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was that kind of dual sort of thing I always like seeing happen between 2 warlords. That I didn't like it being a rule in 6th and 7th edition, but I like it being an option, now as much as it was in past editions. So that was a cool moment, but it was a very one-sided game. And afterwards, I was kind of complaining that I'm like, man, this board is so brown because I painted it in college. And Dylan's like, hey, the girls are all just hanging out. Want to just work on your board? So we just ran and got some paint and just started painting the board. And
nice.
my cat Numi helped as much as she ever does. And
Very
it was cool.
good. That sounds like a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, it was a great evening. We drank a lot of beer and had a fun game, even if it wasn't exactly the most back and forth.
Yeah, well, I had a game too with Mike Brandt, who many of you listeners might have heard of before. He runs a Nova Open. We were watching Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we decided to get a game at the same time. And it was a great game. We did a Nova mission, which I'm not a huge fan of the Nova missions because they're pretty fucking complicated.
They tend to be.
Like when it's a Monday night and there's a hockey game going on that I want to watch, like I'm much more inclined to do like an open war deck game.
Yeah,
because I'm just trying to chill. But Mike is, well, he likes it when like things are designed to be fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the chapter approved missions, they're simple, and that's why I like them. They're simple. You can just go play, have fun for a little bit and whatever. But he likes it to make to have the mission design be more thoughtful and be more fair and balanced and stuff. And so we did a Nova mission. It was fun. But the game itself was a ton of fun. I had my Raven Guard. I did 2,000 points of my Raven Guard. The first time I've used my Contemptor Dreadnought.
Nice.
Who died on turn 2. And he had a double battalion with one battalion being Blood Angels and one being, a battalion and a brigade. He had a brigade of guard and a battalion of Blood Angels with 3 Slamguinii. And Slamguinii, listeners, if you're not familiar, is a jump pack space Blood Angels captain with a Thunderhammer and Storm Shield. He had 3 of them with 3 scout squads and then a Imperial Guard brigade, including a couple of Lehman Russ battle tanks, which is what killed the poor Contemptor. And we tied. It was a 27-27 at the end of the match. I managed to kill all his Slamguinii. He killed a lot of my stuff. I killed a lot of his stuff. It was a really fun game that was sort of back and forth until the very end when it was turn 6 and we were doing the whole calculations of, well, I'll get 1 victory point if I do this. But if you move this guy over here, I can kill him and I can shoot him. And I was something like 45 points away from getting 45 points away of killing his stuff for getting 1 more victory point to round out. I think it was like 1,500 points killed to get 1 more victory point. And then I would have had it 28-27. But he hid all of his guard characters behind terrain, and I couldn't get at him or anything. So it was a fun game. It was a good one. It was a good time.
Cool.
And, I usually, whenever I play Mike, I usually get my fucking face stomped. But the All Primaris list actually matches up well against his and some of the guys in town. They're like tournament quality lists. Yeah. Now, this was not his tournament quality list. He had 3 Custodes captains in a Supreme Command that he pulled out and added like a couple of Lehman Russes and some other stuff to it to make it less, bullshit. Yeah, right. But it was mostly the list that he won the London Grand Tournament with. So
yeah, about to say, it seems kind of, a lot of that seems like the cookie cutter competitive list stuff right now, where it's really fortunate the Blood Angels 3rd company has 3 captains in it instead of just 1.
Yeah, right. They're all Death Company captains too. That's the other thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it was funny. We added a rule for whenever the Capitals scored a goal, we'd each get a command point, and whenever the Knights scored a goal, we'd each lose a command point. And the Capitals won that game 6-2.
Solid.
So we got a little bit of a surplus of command points, which was
That's
helpful.
cool.
At one point, I was like, I had 2 command points left, and I needed to make. I needed a Cap's goal to give me 3 command points so I could interrupt his combat phase and kill one of his Slamguinii before it could kill me.
Yeah.
And it happened. The Caps, thankfully, got a goal so I could do my stratagem and
that's fun.
And make that thing, which was actually kind of a game-breaking moment. It was really good because Slamguinii are tough. They're 3 invulnerable saves, whatever, but they only have 5 wounds and toughness 4.
Yeah, they're
so if you can get to them, like kill all the shit around them so you can shoot at them or attack them in combat, they're not too bad. I mean, you don't want to hit them with you really don't want to attack them with Power Fist or anything. You want to attack them with bolters.
Yeah, it's just 3 ups.
I don't know about you, man, but I fail fucking 3-up armor saves against bolt guns and las guns more than I do against anything. I'm like, battle cannons, I got 5 ups. How many? 4 or 5 up? Boom, got it. I got 7 las cannons. Boom, 4 dead. Oh, cool.
As
Or
somebody
save
who's,
las guns, rather.
as somebody who's been playing Space Marines almost exclusively for like 13 years, yeah, I know what kills my guys the most. So,
all right, well, let's move on. We're going to move on to our new favorite segment. Well, my new favorite segment, We Make the Call, where I have scoured the internet, a.k.a. looked at Yahoo Answers for 10 minutes, for something to ask Campbell, where we make the call. So, Campbell, are you ready for this?
I am ready to make a call of some sort.
Is your body prepared? Did you apply the sacred unguents and oils?
It's called aloe, and on my sunburns, yes.
All right, man. Here we go. Campbell, would anyone read a 40k manga?
Yes, me. I would. I want to be the Warhammer mangaka.
Oh boy.
So the answer is yes. Now the better answer would be, or the better question would be, does anyone with self-respect want to read this? And the answer then is invariably no. But oh god, I'd be all over it, especially if it was like, it's like, Brother Atreus is the new transfer student from Kunikigaoka Junior High. How will he manage in a school full of orcs? Oh no, actually no. He'd be the only Space Marine living in a chapel barracks full of Sisters of Battle.
Now we're talking.
And they're all 16, except for the one who's 9,000 years old but looks like she's 9.
Okay, so there are some good answers on Yahoo Answers for this one, and they all, like, one of them was like, oh, maybe, like, if you write it well, maybe somebody would. But the other three that were like the top were, I thought, pretty good. So this first one's not good, and you'll understand why. But I including it anyways because it might get a laugh out of you. But he says, "Dear God, no. Warhammer 40k is too manly to be turned into an anime-style drawings."
Oh, he has never seen Berserk.
Another one says, "God, no. It would be terrible, and GW would sue you just for having the idea. They are very touchy about their intellectual property."
I'm so glad they can mind read as well as sue you.
And then the last one I liked was, "LOL, no."
Get in the fucking Titan, Shinji.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our first big discussion of the podcast. And this one we're calling How Not to Be with Dan and Campbell. Recently, Campbell, we've had a little bit of controversy in the Warhammer 40,000 community.
It's been a fucking week, man.
It's been a couple of weeks of people doing stupid fucking things. So let's break it down with the first one here. In 2014, I think, Frontline Gaming got a night commission, 40k night commission, and they painted it mostly red and white. And the painter drew a skull and crossbones on the shield, but not just any skull and crossbones, Campbell. He drew the Totenkopf, the symbol used mainly by the SS during World War II, by the Nazis, the Naziest of the Nazis. You could say.
The real bad ones. You know, the "Are We the Baddies" sketch. Those ones, like. It is,
yeah. So
it's not a cool pirate flag.
No, it's not. It's not just a random symbol from the internet. So this was featured in Frontline Gaming's article about the new Night Codex. They had a picture of it, and they said it was a commissioned paint job from them for someone. And Reese Robbins, the guy who runs it, Frontline Gaming, that is, he was called out on it, and somebody said, "Hey, man, that's a Nazi symbol on your knight there." And well, Campbell, he reacted kind of badly to it.
He picked up the shovel and he just started digging.
Right, and I don't really want. Well, okay, I'm kind of torn here because like a part of me wants to read his terrible non-apology in my Reese voice. But my Reese voice will kill my voice for the rest of the show.
About to say, you have a band and an audio job to do right now, so.
Right. And also my browser just froze on my laptop, so I don't know if I can get
they'll give you time to warm up your fucking Reese voice, start gargling on some broken glass.
Yeah, so just
that might be too mean. Cut that if you need to.
Just give me a second here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so he's talking a lot about. He's basically saying, "Oh, it's just we didn't know anything, so don't throw fits. Don't, everybody's too sensitive. Whatever. He also says "lasai" at some point.
That's how you're like, oh, fuck this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been in the camp of fuck this guy about Reese Robbins for quite a long time. And this is just the dumbest fucking way to get at this issue. If I used an offensive symbol unintentionally, and somebody called me out on it and said, hey, that is offensive, and maybe you should think about changing it, I think there's a pretty fucking easy way to get out of that without making yourself look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you just go, oh, my bad, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. So the Totenkopf itself, it's not quite as well known as, say, the swastika, but it is still it's a well-known bad guy. It's a well-known symbol, and it's, again, just so you're clear, this is not just a cool skull and crossbones, it is the exact perspective. It has the cracks in the same places. Like, it is that Death in June logo that also happened to be used by the SS. And I find it hard to believe that nobody in this chain, not the person who commissioned it, not the painter, not the photographer, not whoever uploaded the image to the website, not Reese, whoever posted the thing, I find it hard to believe that not a single person in this chain knew that this is a fucking Nazi symbol.
Well, I actually don't find that hard to believe because, I mean, people everywhere just don't know shit. And I don't think the Totenkopf is necessarily basic knowledge. You know, we know it. We know it. Yeah. I know it specifically because my grandfather fought in World War II. And when I got my first tattoo, which involved a skull, he sat me down and was like, "Are you a Nazi?" And I was like, "No, Granddad, I am most certainly not a Nazi." And then he talked and showed pictures of the Totenkopf to me and told me how a lot of the SS people would have it tattooed on them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this is very good knowledge to have. This is very good, you know, maybe not necessarily basic knowledge, but it's good that now I know that this symbol is connected to these evil people and it's going to be offensive to a lot of people who see it. And I just want to make a point. It's okay to make mistakes, people.
Yeah.
Especially if you learn from them. You know, if Reese Robbins comes out and says, hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm never going to use it again. Now we know. Great. Fine. You've learned. We've all learned. We're all growing as a community. That's great. But when you fucking come out and you're like, this wasn't intended to be offensive, so I'm not going to apologize for it. And then he makes a statement later, and I think like his second or third post on the comment section of that site on Frontline. He's like, he makes the argument that if it was unintentional, then he would apologize, or he wouldn't apologize for it. But if it was intentional, then he would apologize for it. Yeah, which is like, what the fuck does that even? Do you not understand how this works? When you fuck up unintentionally or intentionally, and people call you out on it, and you're trying to get past it, you apologize. It's just a stupid, arrogant man doing stupid, arrogant things.
Because even if you don't mean it, like, yeah, that's not great, but at least God.
I honestly hope you learned something from it.
I hope he does too. I imagine there'll be I hope there's some blowback to this because we're not the only people who've noticed this or called this out. Like, you might have seen me tweet about it the other day. That was due to the findings of Kinda Spooky Witch on Twitter, which drew it to my attention, and I've seen it go around some forums and so on. But it's kind of only it's only the vanguard of this very certain week of news like this.
Right. So next up, let's keep it in the range of Nazism right now. But a fella on, I believe, Facebook, but I could be wrong, posted pictures of his SS mega knobs with actual fucking swastikas painted on their arms, like,
which were painted as red armbands, again, like the Nazis.
Right, and this guy, he apparently has been doing a project of like German army themed orcs for a while, and has like a bunch of that shit painted up already. But he put actual fucking swastikas on his model, and then he posted it publicly on Facebook, and people were like, dude, what the fuck?
Yep, because his whole theme is there too. Like, he has his grots are from, I think, Cromwell or one of those sort of manufacturers where they're in German helmets and coats and all that stuff. And, you know, they look kind of goofy because they're grots. But that's kind of, you know, everyone has their own level of comfort as far as this goes, but that's where you firmly go over the line.
No, I let's harken back to some shit that we talked about in a previous episode, and it's don't put Nazi shit on your fucking models.
Nope. You just don't do it. It's the kind of thing where you just do a gut check, ask somebody, is this cool? And if they're like,
my dad told me something I try to live by when I was a young man, when I was in high school or something. He said, if you have to justify it, don't do it.
That's good dadly advice.
And so fortunately, some good, well-minded hobby people came at this guy. One of them was poster JPB on the Something Awful forums. I think it's either JPB or JBP. I don't know. Either way, he's got one of those like flashy rainbow avatars that I like so much. Mm-hmm. He went after the guy and got him to actually paint over the fucking swastikas.
Yeah,
and it was stuff like, and the guy was like, "Oh, if it was just like an axe head or something, even if it was the same colors, would that be okay?" And dude was like, "Yeah, that would be okay. It would. Well, it would be more okay. It would be less problematic."
Yeah, like I said, everyone has their level of comfort, and so on. But there's some points you just don't go over, and that's one of them. But mind you, JPP, peanut butter. He went after the guy. He did it in a very like. He wasn't like, "Yo, asshole." No, he was like, "Hey, dude, this isn't cool. This is gonna offend people. This is really bad." He didn't do it by being an instigating asshole himself.
No, and I actually appreciate that a lot. So I'm going to pivot and segue there to a time where I think, well, it's Fallout Games recently liked a post, and we're going to talk about the post last because I think this is the most egregious one out of all of this, about this model somebody created called the Manhammer or something. It's really disgusting. We'll get into it in a moment.
Yeah.
But Fallout Games is a company that makes transfers and stencils for airbrushing, and they go to Nova every year, and their products are really good.
They are. I just bought a bunch of them like 3 days ago before I heard about this.
Social media guy on Facebook liked this disgusting. No, I'm sorry. He didn't like the model itself, but he liked the defense of the model, and he was called out by Variance. I think Variance 40K.
Hammer.
It's called Variance Hammer. Yeah, and Variance Hammer called him out on it and said, did you mean to like this? And then the guy was like, yeah. And then Variance Hammer was like, all right, well, I'm not going to shop with you anymore. Which I think that was a little confrontational, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like not a necessarily good way to open up dialogue. But I get it. Because if you are liking the defense of something so objectively fucking disgusting as this model, then like that sucks. That you might not be a good person. So the guy who runs Fallout Hobbies, this guy, I think his name is Ron Gamble. He starts posting not under the Fallout Hobbies name on Facebook, but his name, his personal Facebook account. He starts posting all these defenses and stuff, and he's talking about freedom of expression. People can make whatever they want, do all this stuff, and people keep calling him out on it, and then he starts going into full "oh fuck, what did I do" mode. He starts being like, "Hey, this business, I provide for my kids with this. I don't want to lose any business over this." And he ends up deleting his tweets and completely backpedaling. Mm-hmm. Or not his tweets, he's deleting his Facebook posts and completely backpedaling. Which, two things. One, I hope he learned something. Mm-hmm. That if you embrace and support toxicity in the hobby and then potentially lose business because of it, I mean, that's good. That is how it should be. Mm-hmm. If you do shitty things, you deserve shitty things to happen to you.
Yeah.
Second, good on the community for getting on this guy. Good on them for saying, hey, we're not going to accept this. We're not going to accept this sort of virulent bullshit in our hobby. So I'm very proud of people like Variance Hammer and the people in the rest of that Facebook thread that worked out and maybe promoted a little bit of change in the hobby.
Yeah, I'd really hope so, because again, like, I like their product and I'm not going to buy it. Like if that's the kind of people there are, I don't want to support that kind of business.
No, neither do I.
No. A regular problem with a lot of these things. Actually, I want to bring this last one up after we talk about this next model, because this is this is the last thing. And again, normally we aren't like, oh, some schmuck painted this model, but the fact there's just a deluge of this stuff this week specifically, and it's all kind of made news in the gaming community, is why we're bringing it up.
Right. So a guy who I don't know his name. I don't really care about his name.
We're not going to mention his Instagram or anything like that because we don't want to link people to him. You can find him if you really want to find him. I don't want to give him the traffic.
He used I think it was a Perturabo.
It's like Perturabo and Dorn. It's a kit bash of a bunch of models.
So he used a bunch of Forge World models to make what he called the Man Hammer, who I think was the Primarch or chapter master or something of his Monster Energy Marines.
Yeah, his Monster Energy drink themed chapter, which they all have the monster logo on their capes. And you might, if you haven't heard of this, you might already kind of be able to read into this guy's personality a little bit.
Right. So he made this guy. He's in the like glittering gold armor. He's got a big purple cape on and a purple hat, like a purple fedora almost.
He's supposed to look like a 70s pimp. Like a 70s blaxploitation movie pimp, yeah.
Yeah. And then he's surrounded by these models that were for sale on DACA, I think, that were categorized as rape models.
Yes, they are slave women who are bound and gagged and naked with their asses in the air or with, their mouths open, and they're naked. Like, they're all ridiculously proportioned naked women in bondage.
This is not the first time that this sort of thing has happened. If you can recall and we'll take a trip down memory lane, a very terrible, shitty memory lane. But remember that Eldar rape diorama that somebody made?
Yes, I do, unfortunately. That is scarred in my memory.
So, Warhammer, unfortunately, I mean, shit, fucking GW used to sell slave girls from the Dark Eldar range.
Yes.
They remember that, they were very poorly modeled.
They weren't fetching, I'll say that much. Thanks, so Gary Morley.
This guy who made this Manhammer thing, this sort of thing has been happening for a long time in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't talk about it that much years ago. You'd come in and people would be making jokes around the table. Oh, that unit got raped. Oh, fucking butt raped that unit, man. Whoa, it's fucking wild. Blah. Like, that was accepted language at a gaming table.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately it was.
And it's not anymore. Like, if somebody says that shit around me, I remember I was with a friend of mine. I don't want to mention his name, but we were playing, or I was playing a game and he was watching and he said, "Oh, you really got raped there." And I said, "Please don't use that language around me, dude."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, sorry." And I'm like, "It's cool. Just, let's move on from that kind of talk." And I wasn't trying to be mean about it, and he didn't take it badly, and we moved on, and it was great. And to my knowledge, he hasn't used that kind of language around me since, and I hope that he's just not using that language at all. But it's fucking 2018 now. If this model came out like 2008, fucking 10 years ago, I think people would be like, "Oh, it's weird, but whatever. It's this hobby. It's just guys being dudes and all that shit."
Boys
but
being
it's
boys.
not fucking acceptable.
No,
Pimps are the lowest of the low. They're truly disgusting humans who use threats of violence, actual violence, and drugs to control women to perform sexual favors to enrich them, the pimp, not the woman, the pimp. It is one of the most disgusting things possible to happen. It's human fucking trafficking is what it is. And so when you take a model, a Warhammer 40,000 model, something that has nothing to do with this kind of crime, with sex work, and you bring pimping and sex work into it and put it in such a favorable light. This is the master of my chapter. This is the Primarch of my fucking Monster Energy Marines or whatever bullshit this guy's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely fucking disgusting. So when this guy comes out and he's like, "Oh, check out my sweet fucking pimp Marine," and then people are like, "What the fuck, dude?" And then he's not like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He fucking stands behind it.
Yeah, he says, "What are you getting offended about?" And then he even backpedaled again and said, "Actually, it's meant to be a parody," which was never apparent from the beginning and doesn't really work, especially with his language and how clearly into it he is. Like, this is not him being... There's no self-awareness here. There's almost no self-awareness here whatsoever. And it's a critical lack of empathy on the part of human beings. And one of the things that have kept people who aren't F1 white dudes out of this hobby are things just like this.
Exactly.
Because imagine you go into a game store and you're looking at the tables and the only everyone is looking for themselves wherever they go, whatever media they consume, whatever art they make, what have you. And the only representation of yourself you see in there is as a sex object, as a bound slave before this guy who's, I think his actual name is Big Dick. I don't recall. It doesn't matter. That's not going to want to make you stick around and hang out with that community. It'd be like if you were black and you walked into a game store and all the trees had black people hanging from them or something like that. Like, yeah, I'm drawing from similar examples here, but it's just shitty. It's a lack of awareness of anything outside of yourself.
So I'm gonna say a couple things that might tick off some listeners, and if it does, if anybody gets mad at this segment of our show, I will gladly issue a full refund. You will get your money back from the 40k Badcast for the podcast. That is, if you bought a shirt, that's our money. We're keeping it.
Then just burn it in effigy, whatever.
Yeah. Privilege. Privilege is a thing that exists. I'm a straight white man. Campbell, you're a straight white man. Most of the people we know in this hobby are straight white men. Just because we haven't lived it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Completely.
And we've got to know that as a community. We've got to know that. We've got to understand that things are different for different people. And when you come into the hobby with racist iconography, sexist iconography, homophobic or transphobic or anything else with your models, you've put in hours and hours of work into this stuff. Okay? Show me somebody who puts in hours and hours of work into crafting his Nazi orcs or his fucking disgusting pimp chapter master or whatever, who doesn't fucking live that shit.
And the most common defense I'm seeing here is that this is art. This is expression. And yes, it is. But there's a difference between having a piece of art showing how horrible it is for women who are sex workers or how horrible the Nazis were, as opposed to something glorifying them.
Yeah, and no. And that's another thing. Art, not all art is special and worthy of praise, or it should be fucking preserved. Some art is garbage. Some art is propaganda. Some art is fucking trash. Mm-hmm. Especially stuff that shows women as objects or commodities to be used instead of treated like a fucking human.
And the common defense of this stuff also is that there's bigger things to worry about. And yeah, there are. The fact that you painted a fucking swastika on your orc has nothing to do with, starvation in America or our crumbling whatevers. Like, it doesn't relate to that, but that does not make it invalid.
I disagree. I fucking disagree with that statement big time. This is big. And it's big because you can't let toxic behavior become normalized in a community. When the whole fucking problem with a lot of the shit that goes on in the world is that people don't care to feel what others are feeling. They either don't care or they don't want to. And if you open yourself up to feeling the way other people feel about stuff and sharing in the experience or learning about the experience and empathizing a little bit with the experience, this shit's not going to fucking happen. Because it's not funny to show fucking horrible racist iconography. It's not funny to objectify and commodify women. And if you cared about that at all, if you had any empathy, it wouldn't fucking happen. So I disagree with that, man. I do not think this is a small issue. I think this is a pervasive issue that goes over everything, all the fucking problems that we're dealing with. Empathy and the lack of it. So no, I reject that wholeheartedly.
All right. Whether you're a ham or not, just own your mistakes and learn to be better.
You can learn, all right?
Anyone can learn. Anyone can be better.
Master guy. If he comes up tomorrow, if he fucking makes a post, I was wrong. I've gotten rid of the model. I'm learning from this. It's good.
Yeah.
Welcome back, dude. Come on. Yeah. Your monster marines are, it's silly.
It's silly.
It's not gross. It's not terrible. It's Monster. Oh, well, Monster Energy drink is
gross and terrible.
But that's not what I'm talking about. Welcome back. If Reese Robbins comes out and says, you know what, defending this horrible miniature was wrong, and I'm sorry, and we're never going to do stuff like this again, I say, fucking pat on the back, buddy. Welcome back. Come on in. It's cool. If Fallout hobby guy comes in here and gives a reason that's not, I might lose business, so I'm sorry, but comes out and understands why he did, why it was wrong what he did, that's great. Come on back. We're
waiting for you.
We're gonna welcome you back. I'll shop at your store. I'll pick shit up at Nova. Like, it's cool, but you got to learn, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn.
You're never too old for it.
All right, let's move on.
On a related note, this episode is brought to you by Burns' Bridges. When you don't want friends, just think Burns.
All right, Campbell. Well, now that we're off that serious shit, let's get back to our fun, light podcast here and talk about what I'm calling a year out. It's been a whole year of Warhammer 40,000 since June of last year when they dropped the Dark Imperium box set. And I wanted to talk about how our year has been with 40k. So broadly, 2040k. Wait, what is it?
2040k Warhammer 2040k teen. It needs to be. It can't just be 40k teen or 2040k teen. It needs to be Warhammer 2040k teen.
Warhammer 2040k teen. So Campbell, what are your just broad thoughts about Warhammer 2040k teen?
I can't keep up with it, man. There's just it's kind of the same point. Like at first, I was like, oh, a codex every month. All right. 2 codexes. All right, fine. Other games being supported too. Okay, fine. Like, my Dark Imperium set is still in the sprues, man. It's just this relentless release schedule, and I don't know how they're keeping up with it. And it's weird because there would be like a 2-week gap where it's like something got announced and nothing's out yet, where it just feels like the entire world has stopped. Then it goes back at 60,000 miles, 40,000 miles an hour rather, and we're right back in it. And it's a lot to keep up with. And
it is, man.
I haven't even bought chapter approved yet. And you know what? I think I might just wait till the next one because I don't know if I'm going to get much use out of it before the next one comes out.
Yeah. The missions are pretty good in the chapter approved book.
Yeah, and they won't be in the next one. There'll be different missions in the next one. It's not that they won't be good. But
so, yeah, Warhammer 2040k teen has been wild. It's been a fucking roller coaster, man. I've played more games of 40k in 8th edition than I think I did in the years of 7th edition that I played in. I mean, I got back into the hobby in like 2014 and was playing 7th edition 40k at Nova at 2 or 3 Novas and an Adepticon and whatever. And I think honestly, I've played more 40k in 8th edition than those 3.5 years or 3 years or so or whatever combined.
I completely believe it because like I have so many friends who I'd played Age of Sigmar with, and I'd played like older editions of 40k with or Necromunda with who I just didn't get to play with for 3 years because they didn't want to play 40k because it was such a slog. And while the new edition isn't perfect because nothing is, it's so much more accessible. It's so much faster. It's so much cleaner. There's communication from GW on what's coming next and on fixes being made. You don't have things like Grey Knights dominating an entire edition like they did in 5th edition.
Hey, I like that. I had my Grey Knights in 5th edition.
Though
I didn't have those Grey Knights.
Oh, okay.
They weren't optimized at all because I'd finished them in fucking 4th edition. So I've divided this into a few buckets and what's good about the game, what still needs help, and what are we looking forward to. So let's go through some questions, or some thoughts about what's good about the game. And my first thought is it's so much fucking quicker.
Yeah.
You can knock out a 1,500 point game in like 2 hours.
It's not a 3.5 hour ordeal anymore.
Every unit can affect the course of the game, which was not the case in 7th edition. Ask my fucking guardsman squads. They didn't fucking do dick at all. But this time around, because wounds, there are no caps of strength or toughness for the wound. The wound chart has been simplified so much that lasguns can still, you got one more wound on your Land Raider? Well, here's fucking 10 lasguns.
Yeah.
And we'll see about that one wound there, fella. And there's a chance that it's going to happen. Psychic powers aren't Oh my God. Do you remember having to roll for psychic powers?
How many dice you have? And you had dispel dice because they ported over the magic system from Warhammer Fantasy wholesale, and it didn't work as well in this game as did Warhammer Fantasy. And so many of those psychic powers were there specifically to make things fucking untouchable. Like, you had invisible squads running around, like invisible squads that were blessed with something else, so you could only hit them on 6s and they saved on 3-ups or reroll their saves or whatever the fuck. You just had all these wackadoo combos that some armies just had absolutely no counter for or way to deal with whatsoever, where again, you just weren't hurting shit. Because, yeah, it's just not fun to leave models on the table. Like, we play this game to kill each other.
Right, and like, my thing is, like, I would get out there and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna roll my psychic powers for my dudes. Oh, I didn't get invisible. Okay, well, I've lost this game, so
yeah,
see you later. Combat, instead of being this like immense slog through the game, it's fun. I called it fun and flirty in my notes because it's fun. You get in there and you smash everybody around, and it's great.
Yeah.
I think that there's like combat is still the longest part of the game. Like, it takes the longest to do because it's still like positioning and all this stuff. I think it could be better. I don't necessarily know how, but there's still some things about combat that I'm not a huge fan of. Mm-hmm. But it's okay. It's better than it used to be.
Oh, completely. You're also not having squads bust and get overrun constantly. You're like, if a squad takes a morale check, which they actually fucking matter now. Like, a lot of the things just didn't really matter. And now if there's a morale check, you might lose a guy instead of your whole squad either running off the table or just sticking around, which it did 95% of the time.
Right.
Now, granted, you'll still get, if a squad gets real beat up, they'll still run off the board, but that's basically just finishing the job on a horde squad. It's not, and it's happening for good reason, not just because one random dude tripped on a tree branch and died and the entire squad decided to run 12 inches back off the table.
Yeah. Right.
Not speaking from experience here. But you're also cutting out all this chaff. There were so many like bolted on chaff rules that there just didn't need to be. Like, how many things in 7th edition had blind or
oh my God, yeah,
terrify or fear or shred,
and it never mattered.
It almost never mattered. And
or
when
knockdown, remember knockdown?
No, I don't. I thought that was a Necromunda rule.
Or Zealot. Remember Zealot?
Yeah, I do, because I was working on Black Templars before 8th edition dropped.
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't. There was another rule that did the same fucking thing though, because there was like Zealot and Crusader. I think there were different rules. And now it just says on the guy's war sheet, oh, this dude does this. All right, cool. I know what they do. You don't have to go cross-referencing through books.
Terrain, Campbell. Terrain. Okay, so this might be a medium heat level take. I like the terrain rules. I know that a lot of people feel that it's too hard to get terrain rules, but the terrain rules in 7th edition were fucking bullshit. It's like, oh, this little fucking thing is poking out, and now my guy ignores half of all shots.
Or these guys had to run over a downed tree branch, and now they're going to hit last in melee and die, even though they're Terminators who can charge through walls.
Or my fucking Land Raider went over the corner of ruins and is now immobilized.
Or my Vehicle Squadron did the same thing, and one got immobilized and died, although that's an older edition thing.
That's 6th edition, yeah.
5th edition, too. That was a dumb old rule, but yeah.
Yep. And, like, I hated it, man, when, like Nurgle Demon Princes were flying around with 2-up rerollable cover saves.
It's just not fun.
And it's just like, fuck you guys. So cover working the way it does now, I think it's fucking fantastic. I love it.
It also means that things like Space Marines benefit from being in cover against anything smaller than a las cannon. Because previously, your guys it was all or nothing. You either got a cover save or you didn't. And if a cover save was just, a 5-up or whatever, if you had a 2-up or 3-up armor save, why would you be in cover? It just didn't benefit for you against most weapons. So now everything benefits from it. But again, it's a simple system. It's just +1 to your save. Easy. That being said, there are things I miss about the old cover system or about a more complicated cover system, but we'll get to that when we get to the negatives in the bucket.
Okay, so I only got 2 more positives here, but command points.
That's a fun rule.
Oh my God, command points are fun.
It's a great way to just put character into the game. It's a great way to put tactical choice into the game. It's resource management, and yeah, there's ways to mitigate that. There are, and you can build a list around that, and that's worth visiting. But I love the idea of them, and I love the implementation of them.
And lastly, I think that it's lovely that Games Workshop is actually reacting to player input.
Yes, vocally and outwardly, too.
It's so cool that they're posting pictures of Sisters of Battle models that they have in progress. It's so cool that they're putting out surveys and talking to people and then playing games and then changing the way the game works based on the broken bullshit that they find at Adepticon.
Oh, it's astounding. And yeah, I don't envy the people who have to sift all the useful data from the garbage data there, but that's really swell, man. That's just swell.
You're going to say chaff again.
I was going to say chaff again. That's just on my mind. I haven't played Metal Gear Solid in a while. I don't know why that's on my mind.
We're just a couple of chaff boys.
A couple of chaff chaps.
That being said, ooh, chaff chaps. I like that a lot more.
Yeah, that's a good team name.
All right, so Campbell, what still needs help in 8th edition 40K?
I do have a couple more positives.
Oh, go for it. I'm sorry.
I love that every character has a purpose. Because previously, how useful was a Space Marine captain?
Like not useful at all. He was the answer to that.
He was a shitty beat stick. He wasn't even that good at beat stick, and he never.
You know who he was? He was a fucking combi melta shot.
Yeah,
that's what he was.
That's what he was, and they didn't really reflect what you have in the backstory of these captains leading charges and being bold heroes who support the troops around them and order them around. Aside from like guard officers who could actually issue orders, which I still love that rule system, and absolute nightmare combat monsters, you didn't really have a lot in the way of buffing or supporting units outside of, say, a librarian or what have you.
But now the captain gives his aura of helping out all around him.
Yep, and lieutenants, that's a cool little addition, does a similar thing. And almost every character does something like that, and I like that a lot. And that adds into the kind of characterful rules that we get now for factions and little sub-factions within factions. Because for a bit, we've seen, Ultramarines, Raven Guard, they're different. They have different chapter tactics and access to some different things. Like, that's been a thing for a while. But now Guard regiments exist.
Yep.
Craft worlds exist.
Yep.
Chaos Marine legions exist for more than the 6 months at the end of 7th edition. I love that you can kind of build around these rules to be like, oh, well, these guys benefit from these rules, so I should build an army around this. Or you can just be like, yeah, this is just my Raven Guard army, and they happen to benefit from these on these units. It's really cool. I love having that.
Your army can instantly be thematic.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's great that it's just like built into the game that your Black Templars are gonna make those charges.
Yeah, that your Thousand Suns get the psychic power bonuses. That your Hive Fleet Squigglepuff gets -1 to hit or whatever. I don't know the Hive Fleet names. They're all just squiggly monsters.
So Campbell, what else? What needs help in 8th edition? Because it's not all fucking Guns N' Roses or whatever that. Whatever that phrase is.
It is also not all Guns N' Roses. I was going to say it's a little more Cinderella or Wasp.
Okay. A little more Dockin. If this van's a rockin', doing coke to Dockin.
I haven't heard that one.
I got one that needs that I need to work on. There needs to be an incentive to not just take minimum size units.
At first, I thought when you said I got one, it was going to be another hair metal pun, but okay, this works too.
Yeah, I think it's cool that I can take intercessors in groups of 10, but I'm not gonna.
I've never seen them in squads of 10. I wasn't even wholly aware they came in squads of 10.
Campbell, do you take Crusader squads larger than 5 now?
Yes, because I'm bad.
Really?
Yes, in the game against Dylan the other weekend, I had 2 Land Raiders and one had a 15-man Crusader squad with a captain. But honestly, I don't usually. I usually take I'll take a 10-man close combat squad, and then I might take the scouts as a separate squad so I can get a detachment bonus of some sort. Or I will take the 5-man Las Crusader squads because holy shit, they're good.
Right. I think that there should be some sort of, you should get a reward for using the full squad. Not in every squad.
Yes.
Like Orc Boys, it's built in the rules. They get 30, they get extra attacks. Like they don't need anything else. And
their leadership is better too.
Right. But for like intercessors or tactical marines or scout squads or stuff that can start at half and go up, I think there should be a bonus for taking up to the 10. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a special weapon upgrade for free or something. I don't know. But I think it would help with mitigating that, because a lot of people, they want to take the full 10-man tactical squad, but why? Or the 10-man scout squad, but why?
I always take the 10-man tactical squad. They just, in my head, cannot come in a squad smaller than that unless it's like a combat patrol game. But yeah, my scouts are 5-man. I always take them as 5-man squads. My Crusaders, that 5-man Lasplaz squad is great. I'll take a 10-man Crusader squad and just skip on the neophytes just for whatever. I don't take a lot of full strength. I guess I take more full strength squads than some people, but I'm not taking full strength Terminator squads. That's for damn sure.
Right, but like I think a lot of it comes to like the whole detachment thing too, because you want to get as many detachments as possible into your list.
Yes,
but like that can be. That is so. That's why there's a lot of MSUs, right? Minimum size units. Mm-hmm. So the balance on the other side of that is if you take a lot of large squads, like you're shooting yourself in the foot, competitively in the game.
You're going to take more morale losses.
I think there should be something that balances that out a little bit.
So I will say this is a problem that 30k actually solved. The perfect game that still uses templates 30k actually did solve, where a squad of like 10 tactical marines costs, let's say 150, and a squad of 20 tactical marines, the extra 10 only cost like 130. Like they cost a little less, so you get a little bit of a discount on bigger squads, which I like a lot for encouraging you to take big tactical squads and full size units.
Yeah, I think that if they don't do that, the game's not gonna. I'm not gonna hate the game if that never comes about.
Yeah, it's kind of this isn't a new problem.
I would like to see it.
It is not a new problem.
Another one I have is the fly rule is unbalanced, I think.
I mean, it's not as imbalanced as it used to be.
It's not as imbalanced as it used to be, but units with fly, ignoring any terrain or jumping in and out of combat, and it's. I think it needs to cost more points, basically.
That's fair.
I think like a guardsman costs 4 points, but a guardsman with fly might cost like 5 or 6 points, right? I think it should be like 4 points and 8 points.
I would love it if there were guardsmen with fly wearing silly suicide helicopter packs, but we don't live in that world, unfortunately. Although you can make it happen. They'd make great Rough Riders.
Yeah, I think it's unbalanced. I think it needs to cost more.
That's fair. It's a flat -1 to hit you, which is always
no. I'm not talking about the flyers with that. I'm talking about the fly keyword.
Okay.
Specifically stuff that can that can get in combat and then jump out and then shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
That kind of like it's. I think it just needs to cost more points.
Like the Eldar hover tanks that ram you and then fly away, like just to tie up your units for your shooting phase and get to shoot again theirs. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right, what you got?
For another thing I don't like, well, the terrain. I know I was saying there's a lot of things I do like about the terrain, but there's some things I don't.
Okay.
So we talked a bit about Joe Capena about when we talked with him about Nova Narrative a year ago, whenever it was. And I still share the same feeling on this one. Like I haven't really warmed to this fact yet. Granted, it's frustrating as hell when your tank bogs down in terrain or when your squad fails a charge because you got a penalty to charging through terrain or whatever. But I think it should still affect movement in some way. Even if it's just a flat -1 inches to move or -2 inches to move or something like that, I would really like that because in the game that Dylan and I played, like we had a lot of terrain and we just zipped right over it. And when you're just zipping right over it, and it's not slowing units down or mitigating movement. It kind of it changes up your tactical options. It changes up what you're doing with the actual battlefield deployment, and it makes some of the terrain not feel like it matters as much. Like it's very much line of sight blocking or bust at this point in time because that has the biggest effect on the game. I do wish there was a little more detail in the terrain rules. Doesn't need to be a ton. You know, it's just -1 to moving or -2 to running and charging or whatever. Just a little something to make it matter more during the movement phase.
Okay. I actually don't agree with you, but okay.
All right. That's fine.
I like that terrain doesn't affect movement. I think it streamlines the game. I think it makes everything a lot easier for your planning and movement in the phase that usually takes the longest of all the phases. Mm-hmm. So I'm a fan.
I think it's kind of like
but I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin the game for me by any stretch of the imagination, but I wish it mattered a little bit more.
Okay, even though that everything can affect the course of the game in one way or another. I mean, there are still units that are total garbage.
Oh, yeah. That's
like armored sentinels.
Rough Riders. My heart goes out to you. You aren't in the Codex anymore.
Hunters for Space Marines. You know, the big missile anti-flyer tank?
Yeah, the single last cannon shot?
Yeah. Like, I think, and again, this is not game breaking or anything, but I think they need to take a look at these units, specifically units that that are fun, that have cool models, like the Hunter. I think the Hunter is a cool model.
It is.
But it's garbage.
I mean, there's a higher percentage of useful units than there used to be.
Yes,
like, it's not perfect, but it is much better than it was. Like, how often did you see Whirlwinds before? Did you? I hadn't seen one since maybe 4th edition.
Yeah, no, I finished mine in 5th edition and used it like twice.
Yeah, and now you're seeing them. I'm not saying you're seeing them everywhere, but you're seeing them a lot more. Granted, on the flip side, Vindicators got nerfed into the ground, but Land Raiders became useful again. Like, regular-ass Lehman Russes became useful again. A lot of things.
They're really good.
Yeah. Whole armies are usable again.
Yeah, Tyranids, orcs.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's still units that aren't good.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to, like, or Games Workshop, rather, can do something there. Like, give me a reason to take my Plasma Cannon Sentinels. I'd love to. They're painted well. They look cool. Yeah.
I think this is one case where it's like, it's hard to do without the data's harder to get than it would be in, say, a video game. Because if you're, let's say you were doing an RTS, a strategy game or whatever, and it's like, people aren't building riflemen. Maybe it's because they're bad, and you have that data coming in. With this, you need a bit more manual data collection. Yeah. But
okay, so I'm going to actually slightly contradict what I said earlier.
Okay.
But I kind of foreshadowed for this. But combat, I think the positioning in combat can get a little too granular.
It feels a little bit old. I think, honestly, if it was just like, Squad A charges Squad B, everyone fights. Just simplify it. And simplify it to the level of it being, like, epic between two infantry stands, Well, like, that whole thing, like, Nick Nanavati did a thing on his website where he was, like, the whole, like, surrounding one model so the whole unit can't fall back. Yep.
Like, I don't really like that.
Me neither. It feels gamey.
Because, like everything is abstract in 8th edition except combat placement. Like, you're rolling a random amount to shoot a battle cannon at a unit instead of using a template. Like, it's abstract. The terrain rules are very abstract. But then there's combat positioning, which is super specific.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like the idea that infantry hemming in a tank and the tank can't fall back. Because what's stopping the tank driver from just being like, I guess I'll go in reverse?
I can't run over these grots, no siree.
Because its combats aren't... Like, when I picture a combat in 40k, I'm not picturing one model standing next to one model. I'm thinking of, like, a swirling melee.
Yeah,
it's like people running and jumping and punching and kicking and stabbing and all that shit.
It's not the Jets and Sharks coming at each other face to face for a street fight.
Right. So I think that, like, the whole... Like, yeah, you have to make it to combat. But once, like, two things are in combat, I don't really think that the positioning should, like, matter too much. Like, but it matters so much now.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to fix that, but that's one thing about the game that sometimes gets me where it's like, oh, well, I've surrounded your one guy, so your guys can't fall back. And it's like, fuck you, dude. It's so like that. It's exploitative is the word, right? It's an exploit.
It feels very exploitative, and it is, again, very gamey.
Yeah.
But
you got anything else?
I mean, I still don't honestly understand the entire combat phase. Where there's like, it's like, okay, I pile in, and then I can pile in again afterwards and tie up a second unit, and then I don't get to fight, but I can't pile into a unit I didn't declare a charge on. Can I?
You can, actually.
You can?
But you can't fight them.
Okay.
But they can fight you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll remember that when I'm getting my shit kicked in at 2:00 in the morning during a night fight at Nova.
Well, we're gonna play a game at Nova.
We are, and
we'll talk about that in the outro. We'll get it at later. Sure. But I have another thing that I want to talk about. I don't like CP farms too much. Command point farms. I love command points, but the whole I get the game I played against Mike. Okay, he had his warlord had the Kurov's Aculet Grand Strategist, right? So every time he used a command point, he rolled a dice to see if he gets it back on a 5. But then he had, I think, a relic on one of his Blood Angels that allows him to do that too. So he was rolling N+1, where N is the number of command points used, every time he used a stratagem.
Yeah.
So if he uses a 2-point stratagem, he's rolling 3 dice, and he might gain 3 points after using a 2-point stratagem.
Yeah, I like the idea of having things that can generate more command points or recover them or what have you, but when they stack, they just get to be too much. It's like when you have the -1 modifier units that also have fly or some other extra -1 modifier, and you get things that some armies just can't shoot.
Yeah.
Because that being said, there is a bit of internal balance problems. Like, there's always been codex balance problems. That's been going back as far as the game and Eldar bullshit have existed. But right now, like, there are flat better chapter tactics, craft worlds, and guard regiments to choose for not just all builds, but at least for specific builds. Because, like, Black Templar's chapter tactics are not extra good. They reroll charge distance.
And the Raven Guard chapter tactics are
extremely good.
Yeah.
Because one is going to let you reroll charge distance, that's nice. It's a nice bonus. The other makes your entire army exponentially more survivable.
17 or 18% more survivable.
Yeah,
and because it's I think that's like 1/6, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you also have, how far they go with these different stratagems changes with not stratagems, but these chapter tactics type things changes with every single codex, because they're like, oh, well, every single, like, the Space Marines tactics only apply to their infantry, but not their vehicles. But Guard applies to both. And some
Guard
people
gets one for infantry, one for vehicles.
Yeah.
Eldar apply to both.
Yeah. And you also have some chapter tactic equivalents. I'm very Space Marine centric, as you may or may not know, where it's like, oh, Marines get +1 to this, but these guys get +1 to this, and they get this other thing just by nature of being.
Oh, there's serious codex creep
there is serious codex.
They have not gotten rid of that.
That being said, it isn't a linear codex creep exactly.
No. Like in friendly games or in a narrative thing, like any two armies are going to have a good time, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, when you get to the competitive, that level of gaming, you're not taking Grey Knights to any of that.
No.
You're not going to take Imperial Fists if you're going to play Space Marines.
No, you're not.
So I think that you're right. There is some definite internal balance issues. However, Campbell, in 2018 in December, we're getting another chapter approved.
Yeah, and it'll have more of these changes. And they had that big FAQ back after Adepticon where they made a bunch more sweeping changes. And I really, really like that.
Let's quickly talk about what we're looking forward to. And the first thing for me is more changes, more FAQs, more chapter approved, more engaging with the community and changing the game to make it better. I love it.
Yeah, I like that the game feels like a living rule set in a way. I do think it's going to be a little unwieldy right now to have, it's like, well, you didn't read that FAQ? Well, I've got this one over here in this book, and you don't. Yeah. And it's a lot to keep track of, because I really...
Got to download them and print them out.
Yeah, I know.
And then you got to keep going to the website every month or so and make sure they haven't updated them again.
Yeah, because for how bare bones 8th edition was when it launched, as far as codexes went, when everyone had an index, everything was very contained, and I liked that a lot. Like, to play, I just needed my army's index and the rules. That was it. I didn't need the whole rule book, which is swell, because the fucking vehicle rules in the old edition were longer than the entire rules for this edition.
40 fucking pages of vehicle rules. Oh, yeah. Don't even remind me.
And I don't feel the game has lost that depth. It's lost a little bit of the really granular shit that only mattered once in a great while. That was at best kind of like flavor text, truth be told. Yeah. Like the fact that these get this rule is like, oh, it's cool. These guys deny psychic powers on a 5-up instead of a 6-up, but how often am I even going to remember that? That's flavor text. That's barely affecting the game. There's one more fucking rule to remember. So I love that.
Well, I'm looking forward to Orcs Codex. Honestly, Orcs are the most fun to play. Orcs are the most fun to play against. I can't wait for that to come out. Hopefully it comes out before Nova and gives everybody enough time to use it for Nova. But if it doesn't, hey, that's cool too. It's just fun. I can't wait to get games in with Greg Hess and Kevin Jensen and all the other Orc players that are my friends. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to new missions. If they put Chapter Approved 2018, if they give us some new missions, maybe some asymmetrical ones. Ooh,
that'd be sweet.
And lastly, I think I'm most super excited about what new Primaris stuff comes down the pipe.
Yeah, because the range it's good, but it's not done yet. Like there's plenty of places it can go.
I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm sure they're gonna do a lot.
Primaris Space Marines riding on Primaris wolves.
I don't want that. Please, Games Workshop, don't give me fucking cavalry. I don't want cavalry, but I do want some cool new armor or something, or I don't know, las cannons.
Well, weapons with more than 24 inches of range would be nice.
Right.
But
okay,
yeah,
so
it's an exciting time.
This fucking episode is going long as fuck. So please give me Factor fan fiction so we can start the process of ending this fucking shit show.
So, as you may or may not remember from the last episode, which was we recorded probably a little bit too long ago, I recorded the first part of WH40k fanfiction. Which
the greatest of all titles.
Well, after calling out its less than inspired title, Rob renamed it Fast Times at Terra High.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we're now on to chapter 2 of 5. This is essentially the Ulysses of Badcast fanfiction.
Can you give us a quick recap of chapter 1 before we go on to chapter 2?
So, the previous episode of Fast Times at Terra High had Magnus proclaiming that the anime club would not be shut down by Principal the Emperor.
Okay.
He was gathered with his loyal servants such as Lorgar and Erebus and sorry, where's her fuck?
I think it wasn't Mortarion in there. No, Typhus. Typhus was in there.
Typhus and
then one of the Gemini also.
Yeah, Typhus and Sarah Gemini, who was there to say who Fuck. All right. God, I'm sorry. I'm just rereading it really quick and just laughing.
No. We got it. We're good.
All right.
Let's move on to chapter 2.
Earlier, after school, I don't like anime, said Horace, the class president, as he shook his head. That is the true nature of our conflict. Magnus sighed and slumped down in his chair at the table in the student council room on the second floor of Terra High School. His red head and freckles were signs of his burning hot desire for anime, but ironically, also his confusion about how to protect and defend that very same anime. But I don't want to fight you, said Magnus. You shall not fight me, said Horace, sweeping his arm in a broad gesture that encompassed the fullness of the room, his other hand resting on a stack of books by men named Machiavelli and Nietzsche. For we are the same in nature. We are both presidents, even if I am the president of a class and you are the president of a club. Horace was well liked by pretty much everyone at Terra High. He was class president, head of the debate team, and was widely known to be Principal the Emperor's favorite student. He was voted most likely to be president one day by the yearbook committee, and he typically attended class in a shirt and tie. He was usually seen walking the hallways flanked by the twins, Alpharius and Omegon, who were widely seen as his lackeys. Word was, they'd do anything he asked when they weren't getting high, and that included some rather sordid shit recently. The anime club does not exist anymore, said Magnus ruefully as he shook his head. That is the proclamation that Father has made to this high school. Horace raised a single finger. Ah, he intoned, but what president's power is granted to him by the mere fact of his club or his class? I ask you, should our entire class be consumed by truancy tomorrow should I cease to be president thereof? Magnus frowned in disbelieving repose. Would it not be so? It would not, smiled Horace with the unbeatable wisdom of logic, for I would yet remain, as would my office, as do you right now. Magnus frowned again, as he had not expected the president of the student council to compare the dictates of Principal the Emperor to the crazed, cannibalized cacophony of truancy. But staring into Horace's face, he could see the truth of the wisdom that had been handed down. So, I am still president of the anime club? Horace nodded wisely. Magnus sat up in his seat at the student council table. That means I have a duty to protect anime club and serve it. Horace raised another finger. And if not you, then whom? Magnus sprung to his feet, fists clenched in righteous resolve. He hadn't been this riled up since the anime club spent the better part of a month embroiled in the great subs versus dubs debate. Voices had been raised, chairs had been thrown, and tears had been shed, mostly Lorgar's. But in the end, he had emerged triumphant, just as he would now. Dubs, obviously. Fuck Lorgar. Then what am I sitting around here for? Horace, thank you! Thank you for clearing the path for my eyes! But Magnus did not notice the look upon the student council president's face as he ran from the room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the plot is thickening.
I can't wait for episode 3 now. Oh, God. This is how we get them, Campbell. This is how we get those listeners.
Yeah, we drive him away by making him feel bad, and we bring him back in with fan fiction.
Okay, so that was great. That was really good. I'm hooked, man.
Dude,
Chirurgeon, man. He's got it. He's got them skills.
Dude, he's got his team of fan fiction writers, and I guarantee they'll be back with more when I'm done with this. There are still 3 more chapters of this to go, so join us next time for Fast Times at Terra High, Chapter 3.
Well, all right, man. We're just about done, but we want to mention a couple of things real quick. Campbell and I are going to be playing a game against one another at Nova. I think we're going to do a 2,000-point, probably open war deck game Thursday afternoon at Nova. And if you are going to be at Nova, we would love for you to come by and talk to us and hang out while we play, or give us beers or Long Island iced teas or whatever the fuck else. Because we want to interact with you guys. We want to chill with you. We want to hang with you. And this game will be for the control of the podcast. Currently, the bad boys are in control after the global campaign wrapped up. I will be representing the fuck boys. Campbell will, of course, be representing the bad boys. And whoever wins this game will have control of the podcast for the foreseeable future. It's big news, man. It's really big news.
Big news. This is big news because we've played against each other quite a few times, and this is the first time where there's real stakes, real tangible fictional stakes,
real tangible actual stakes in our open war deck game that we're gonna play at Nova before we get into the narrative. But this is it for the show, guys. We're wrapping up here. You can get at us at social media. We're both on Twitter. I am at DB_sleazy. He is at BrotherSRM, where you can talk to us about a whole range of topics, including sports, but not with Campbell. Campbell doesn't like sports. Or anime, but not with me, because I don't like anime. So be judicious in your conversation topics with the two of us, but please get at us at any time of the day or night.
Yeah, and if you do want to get at us with sports anime, I would just cut your losses and go for me. Because there's plenty of anime about baseball, but Dan probably hasn't watched them.
There's anime about baseball?
Yeah. Baseball's huge in Japan.
Oh, I mean, I knew that, but I didn't know there was anime about it.
Multiple.
Oh. I'm curious.
You're anime curious?
I'm anime curious now. No, I don't know what these feelings are.
Yeah, that's...
All right, well, you can also email us. Never mind. I haven't checked the email in a while. I need to send out packages.
You do.
Oh, God. All
and
right,
there are emails for you in there. And my favorite email this week was sent to us by our good pal RJ, where he found out that the Roman numeral for 40,000 is XL. So I'm going to be legally changing my name to Bad Boy XL soon.
Ooh.
So hopefully Ann doesn't want to take that surname. But yeah, I think being the Chief Boy XL is probably the title to have for whoever's running the podcast.
XL. That's right. It would be because it's 40, because L is 50.
Yeah.
Gosh. That's great. What about at 40,000?
Well, it's XL with like a line over it. It just didn't really... the code didn't copy in properly.
Okay. Oh, shirts. Yeah. You can buy our shirts at the link that Campbell will say, because I can't ever remember it.
At shop.spreadshirts.com/camtunes. And if you really, for some fucking reason, want to, if you're wearing a shirt while we're playing a game, we'll autograph it for you.
No. Oh, God. Why would anybody want that?
Do you want 2 incomprehensible scribbles on your felt shirt from the internet?
Okay. How about this?
Felt. It's much more comfortable than that.
They're very good shirts. They're the finest shirts. Nobody has ever made finer shirts. If you come
just ask anybody.
If you come up to me at Nova and you're wearing a Badcast shirt, I will autograph you. How about that? I will autograph the person on a region of their body of my choice.
Except the taint, not the taint, never the taint.
It's my choice, Campbell. If I want the taint, I'll have the taint. That's what I say when I go to restaurants.
I was about to say that's what you say when you go to a Brazilian barbecue joint, yeah.
I'll have the taint and just the taint. All right, man. Anything else you want to mention before we get the FO?
You can contact us at contact@40kbadcast.com to tell us whatever your thoughts are on the podcast.
I think I already said that, but it could be wrong.
Bears repeating. And if you go to cam2d.tumblr.com, you can look at what I'm painting, because I don't post my stuff on Twitter, except for when Dan says I posted it on Twitter, and I haven't posted it on Twitter yet, which is what happened with my Goliaths last time.
Well, I do post my stuff on Twitter, so follow me into the desert, as thirsty as you are.
Well, I hope you could crack a smile by cutting your mouth in this podcast.
Oh, man. I don't know if an inspiring quote can follow that awesomeness, but give it to me, baby.
A small mind is easily filled with faith.
It certainly is. I'm Dan. He's Campbell. This is the 40k Badcast. We're bad at 40k. You can do. Can do? Fuck it. See you later.
Catmandu.